Welcome back for more Fright Night. Let's talk about the sequel. Let's do it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to talk about the sequel to the classic Fright Night, Fright Night 2. Fright Night 2 came out May 19th, or I should say, it escaped May 19th of 1988. We'll talk about that. It's rated R. It's an hour and 44 minutes long. Had a $7.5 million budget, and upon release, upon its escape into the world, it made $2.9 million. And there's a reason why it was such a low gross. We'll get into it. Now, for this film, Tom Holland was asked to come back to write and direct the sequel, but he was a little busy with a little film called Child's Play. So Tommy Lee Wallace came in to direct this film. Tommy Lee Wallace obviously worked with John Carpenter on Halloween and The Fog, and he directed Halloween 3, and then he went on to direct some TV stuff, and this was his first theatrical film since Halloween 3. And then after this, he went on to do the TV miniseries It, and some other films. But in this sequel, we have William Ragsdale back as Charlie Brewster. We have Roddy McDowall back as Peter Vincent, and they are good friends now, and they Peter still lives close by and considers Charlie a good friend, and Peter still, at the beginning of the film anyway, is still hosting Fright Night on late night TV. Now, Amanda Burst didn't come back to play Amy. Charlie has a new girlfriend, and that's played by Tracy Lynn, and she's Alex. She goes to the same college that Charlie's going to. Julie Carmen is in here as Regine, and she has a relation to Jerry Dandridge. It's his sister, and we'll get into her in a little bit. Brian Thompson plays Boz, and he's kind of like the Watcher, the Protector, just like the gentleman in the first film, and that's played by Brian Thompson, who you'll remember in Cobra as the Night Stalker, and he's been in plenty of films over the years, but he makes an appearance in this film as well. Now, this film, some of the troubled production for this film, this was produced through Live Entertainment. Columbia Pictures was not involved with the sequel. The rights went to Live Entertainment. And right before the film was released, the head of the studio got murdered by his kids, the Menendez boys, if you remember that story from way back when. And right after that happened, they yanked all the promotions for this film and canceled the nationwide release. It only got released in a couple hundred theaters, mostly in New York and LA areas. So this movie kind of escaped into the world. It did not get its full theatrical release like it was originally supposed to get, which is unfortunate. Bad timing, obviously, with an awful incident that took place with the owner of the company, and the movie suffered for it. Stephen Jeffries, who played Evil Ed in the first one, was asked to come back for this film, but he turned it down to go work on 976 Evil, Robert Englund's directorial debut. And anyway, this movie starts off with a quick recap of the first film, some scenes from the first film, and then we realize Charlie is talking to his therapist. Charlie's been going to therapy for 3 years, since the events of the first film. And his therapist, he's finally convinced that Jerry Dandridge was not a vampire. Charlie's been trying to forget that night, and he's convinced now that Jerry Dandridge was not a vampire, that Jerry Dandridge was a serial killer, and him and Peter Vincent stopped that, but Peter Vincent still thinks he's a vampire. So he leaves his therapist's office and he meets up with his girlfriend, and they're talking about going to see Peter. They're supposed to have dinner with him. And Charlie's trying to come to grips with how does he break it to Peter Vincent that they didn't kill a vampire. Because Charlie truly believes that he didn't kill a vampire. But Peter Vincent is all in now. Like, he believes in vampires, and he looks back fondly on that night that him and Charlie bonded over these trial and tribulations they had to overcome with Jerry Dandridge. So Peter's like recanting all these stories from his time in Hollywood and what happened that night with Jerry Dandridge. And Charlie never says anything, and they leave. And Alex's girlfriend says, "I think you handled it nicely. He's a sweet man, and he didn't want to crush his memories of that night." So they go on with life, and all of a sudden, as they're leaving the apartment building, this limo pulls up, and Julie Carmen, who plays Regine Dandridge, which we don't know at first, she lets Charlie know that after she already bites him for the first time. And Charlie's taken with this woman, very attractive, very sultry, very, and he's watching her. She's with a couple other guys, Boz, and then this other gentleman, and this other guy played by John Criles, who I can't remember his name in the character name in the movie, but he's also like this. He ends up being like this werewolf vampire hybrid. I thought he was a werewolf at first, but when I first saw this movie way back when, but he's actually a vampire. And they just moved into this building where Peter lives. And Charlie leaves. And later that night, when Charlie goes home to go to bed, Regine visits him and bites him on the neck. Charlie wakes up thinking it was a nightmare. And all of a sudden, Charlie starts feeling weird. And he starts wearing sunglasses inside, outside, because the light's affecting him. And she comes back and feeds on Charlie a few times. And finally, Charlie realizes that Regine is a vampire. Peter Vincent's already convinced. And Peter Vincent tried to get Charlie to help him, and Charlie kind of blows him off, said there's no such thing as vampires. And Peter Vincent loses his TV show to Regine. The producer of his Fright Night show brings her in and fires Peter. And Peter shows up on set with a stake and that and going to kill her because he knows she's a vampire. And as things spiral out of control, the guy, John Crowell's character, tries to bite Alex in the library scene with Brewster. And then they take Brewster hostage. Peter ends up, because he gets arrested after trying to kill her on set, and they take him to the mental ward. So she breaks Peter Vincent out, and they go back to the apartment building. They only got to save Charlie, and there's a final battle in this apartment, and in the basement of this building where she keeps her coffin. They kill her, and they save the day. And that is Fright Night 2. I know I skipped over a ton of things. If you've never seen the sequel, I highly recommend it. It's actually a damn good sequel. It doesn't get talked about enough. Now, like I said, the theatrical release for this film got nixed. It only got released in like LA, New York, and a few other theaters. So it didn't get a big theatrical release. And a lot of people thought it went direct to video, which was not the original intent. It was supposed to get a wide release, but unfortunately with what happened with the owner of Live Entertainment, that release got scrapped, and it got kind of a very limited release, and then it went straight to video, kind of. This movie was definitely deserved for the wide theatrical release. It is not a direct-to-video type movie. It's well shot. Tommy Lee Wallace directs it nicely. The returning characters are fun. The new characters are fun as well. I like that there's more monsters in this film. Like, she's like a group of this little group of monsters, which is cool. The effects come off really well. They're well done. There's a few moments where the effects aren't as convincing, but overall, the effects are really well done. I enjoy this sequel. I think it's criminally underrated. It's a damn good vampire movie in its own right. I don't think it's as good as the original film, but I think it's a good vampire film and a damn good sequel to the original film. A matter of fact, right before this got released, or what happened, Roddy McDowall and Tom Holland went and spoke about doing a third movie. But obviously with this being a box office, well, it didn't get a proper release, but it was considered a bomb. A third one never materialized, which is a shame. I would have loved to have seen a third Fright Night, obviously do a trilogy of them, but we never got it. And I like that Regine is Jerry Dandridge's sister, so she automatically has a reason to take revenge on Charlie. Well, she does tell him halfway through the movie, she tells him, I'm Jerry Dandridge's sister, and I'm going to turn you into a vampire, and I'm going to make you suffer for the rest of time, because vampires live forever. And she basically tells him that I'm going to make you suffer, and she plans on killing Peter Vincent. She pretty much lays out her plan. And honestly, Julie Carmen's really good in this role. I enjoy her performance, but one of the things is she's not as good as Chris Sarandon in that role. But she's still pretty damn good. She's just different. She's not like Jerry. She plays it differently. But overall, I really like this film. As a matter of fact, this is one of the few films, at one point, Alex uses roses to repel a vampire. And this is one of the few films that have that in. Roses are actually part of the lore where they will repel a vampire. This is one of the few films I've ever seen that in, which is pretty cool. But I would give Fright Night 2 an 8 out of 10. I really like this sequel. It's not as good as the original. That's why I gave it an 8 out of 10. But I still like this sequel a lot. It's a damn fun sequel with some great special effects. The acting's fantastic, and it's very well shot. I highly recommend if you've never seen it. It's hard to find. I have a Blu-ray. It came in a double set with Fright Night 1 and Fright Night 2. It came from overseas. And the transfer is fantastic. You can get that. I got that on Amazon for like $15, and it's well worth it. But yeah, if you've never seen it, I highly recommend if you can find it to check Fright Night 2 out. The original Fright Night 2 from '88, not the remakes Fright Night 2. So yes, 8 out of 10 for Fright Night 2. Have you ever seen Fright Night 2? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I greatly appreciate it. And I will be back on Friday with another review. I hope you're all doing well out there, and I'll be back. See ya. Bye.